All high-pressure cleaners made at Kranzle are subjected to a final inspection, where they are thoroughly examined, mechanically and electrically. All appliances are only made available to customers after this extensive control has been performed. The latest computer-controlled diagnostic methods guarantee reliable functional and safety testing. Control of correct pressure build-up, pump output and control of detergent valve with caring liquid hose. The hood is installed in order to determine waste gas emission. In the case of this model, the fuel pump is set at 10 bar in order to ensure optimum combustion. The flow monitor is examined to see whether it has been switched off. Then it is fixed. In the case of C-series appliances, you must pay attention to the setting mark. A sensor for determining flue gas values is placed into the chimney. After that, CO and CO2 are manually finely adjusted on the nozzle stick. Flue gas analysis includes the following measurements: waste gas temperature, O2 remaining oxygen, CO unused components of oxygen, CO2 carbon dioxide formed during burning of fuel, NO nitrogen oxide formed when the fuel burns with air, lambda excessive air, and loss difference to 100% heating capacity. A protocol of test results is kept. Soot particles are measured. The result is compared with the values on this scale. After all these things have been done, the type plate is inserted with the machine-specific data and the serial number. The burner capacity and correct function of the thermostat and digital display on the control panel are checked. The operating hours of burner and pump can be displayed. Now, after the hand wheel has been removed, the maximum pressure of the machine, in this case 150 bars, is set and adjusted. Now, the safety valve for the heating coil is adjusted as well. The so-called pulsation damper reduces the vibrations in the heating coil. Electricity control for volt and amperes. The antifreeze is filled into the machine and placed into the entire circuit. The red paint seals certain setting screws to guard against incorrect settings. If the machine satisfies all requirements, the measured results and the test protocol are attached to the respective operating instructions or placed into the operating manual. Before making repairs, ask your customer for these documents because technical details and components can change. The protocol is signed by the competent controller so that all results can be followed at all times. Copies are kept on file at the factory. The machine is now ready to be shipped by lorry, ship or container anywhere in the world.
The motor sets in motion what is known as the swash plate, designed to push forward the respective pistons and plungers, which in turn are pulled by a spring. This is a real view from inside a running high-pressure cleaner. This opens and closes the valves. This is a real view of a valve from inside a running high-pressure cleaner after starting up the machine. The 3 suction valves are at the bottom and the 3 pressure valves at the top. In the pump room, the plungers press the water through the high-pressure hose and out of the nozzle. Here, the same process once more, from a different angle. What happens when you use additional detergents for material care? When the valve opens, a vacuum is created inside the so-called injector. The detergent is sucked in, mixed with water and sprayed out of the nozzle. Closing the gun causes the flow of water to be cut and the pressure to increase, while the so-called check valve body is being actuated at the same time. A ball is now being pushed forward by the control plunger, thus enabling a pressureless water circuit in the pump. The water now continues to flow through a kind of bypass in order to prevent any components from being damaged or destroyed by the prevailing high pressure. This principle is also used with pressure switch on equipment using total stop in order to switch off the motor. Please read the respective operating instructions for your Kranzle high-pressure cleaner. Please note, the equipment may only be operated when it's lying. And, by the way, there's no water in the pressure gauge. All pressure gauges are filled with glycerine to absorb vibrations of the indicator. To keep your high-pressure cleaner in a perfect, serviceable condition, make sure that it has an adequate supply of water and the correct electrical supply. Unfortunately, not all users do this. First, a word about the water supply. Check first in the operating instructions or on the specification plate how much water per minute your high-pressure cleaner needs to be able to work. This will be between 7 and 22 litres, depending on the model. You may have to check the water supply on site. This is easy. Fill a bucket with a measuring scale, checking how much water flows into it inside a minute. If too little water flows out of the pipe, it may be because there are already too many water-consuming devices switched on and there isn't enough left over for the high-pressure cleaner. There's a certain hose length that must not be exceeded. This is normally between 1.5 and 3 meters. Check the operating instructions to determine the exact height. Now to the electrical supply. There are high-pressure cleaners that work on 230-volt alternating current and others that require 400-volt rotary current. The necessary electrical voltage can be seen on the specification plate of your high-pressure cleaner. This voltage must be identical with the voltage of the power source. An expert can easily check this with a voltmeter. As with the water supply, if there are too many power-consuming appliances switched on, your high-pressure cleaner may receive too little power. This can then happen to you. The motor can cut out or burn through, so always check with an expert if necessary that you have the right amount of electrical power. A cable that's too long or too thin can also prevent enough power from getting through. The general rule here is, if you have an extension cable of 10 meters or longer, the cross-section of the cable must be at least 2.5 square millimeters. Now you're ready to start. First, connect the high-pressure lance to the gun. Then attach the high-pressure hose. Unreel, making sure that there are no loops. The high-pressure hose should not be longer than 25 meters. Connect the hose to the gun. The safety catch prevents accidental spraying, so always apply it when you finish work. Check this screen filter. The water may have been dirty the last time the system was used. Now connect your high-pressure cleaners to the water line. The hose, by the way, must have a diameter of at least ½ inch or 3/4 inch, depending on the model you are using. Now switch the system on with the trigger pressed, and you're ready to start. The desired pressure is easy to adjust with this hand wheel, and don't worry, the maximum pressure is already set at the factory. This hose with its screen filter is used when working with an additional detergent. Simply turn the regulator nozzle if you want to mix in the detergent. Remember that it's not possible to suck in additional media if you've extended the high-pressure hose to a length of more than 20 meters. If you're using a variojet nozzle, simply slide the nozzle forward and the detergent will be mixed in automatically. Slide the nozzle back to stop mixing. After finishing work, switch off the system and turn off the water. Now press the trigger slowly until the pressure is released, that is, until no more water comes out of the nozzle. Apply the safety catch to make the gun safe. You can now unscrew the high-pressure hose. Switch the motor back on for about 20 seconds to completely empty the pump. Switch off the system and pull the plug out of the socket. In principle, the Therm works like a cold water high-pressure cleaner with an attached combustion unit. Please note, all the precautions we mentioned about water and electricity before are just as important here. Fresh water is sucked in at the underside of the pump before being transferred to the heating coil onto the high-pressure hose, through the gun and into the nozzle. At the underside of the pump, fresh air is sucked in, directed into the combustion chamber and preheated. Fuel is injected through a nozzle and mixed with the air. And finally, the electrodes ignite this mixture. The flame burns from the top to the bottom, and the resulting hot gas flows past the heating coil, thus heating the water. The exhaust gases are released through the chimney.
At present, Kranzle offers 3 types of hot water high-pressure cleaners in different designs and output categories. The O series, the 5 series with flame monitoring, and the new C class also with flame monitoring.
The Therm is so finely balanced that you can turn it in any direction by slightly tilting it. Apply the brakes straight afterwards. Now connect the high-pressure hose to your Therm. First attach the high-pressure hose to the spray gun and lance. This spray gun with incorporated pressure adjustment is available as an option only for 400-volt units. Attach the water hose to a water line and turn on the tap. Now connect your Therm to the electricity. Press the trigger of the spray gun and switch on the Therm. Open and close gun several times to bleed system. Here on the 5 series and with this switch on the 0 series. The Therm is supplied with this starlet gun as standard. In the ignition off position, the Therm is used as a conventional cold water high pressure cleaner. To heat up the water, you must switch on the combustion unit.
Possible leaks between lance and nozzle or on the handle must be corrected immediately, otherwise the components may wear very quickly.
Check beforehand that there's fuel in the tank. If you're working in closed rooms, you will have to follow the rules concerning the extraction of exhaust gases. This adapter for the exhaust pipe can be obtained as an accessory. Now switch on the burner and set to the desired temperature, digitally with the 5 series, and with this thermostat on the 0 series. This is how to activate the steam stage up to 150 degrees Celsius, and again at this knob on the 0 series. On all models, the working pressure and the steam stage are set on this hand wheel. If you're working with additional media, you will need to put this small hose in the container of medium. Now open the valve for the medium so that it can be sucked in by the pump. The therm switches itself off automatically if the trigger is not pressed for a period of 20 to 30 seconds. It starts up again when the trigger is pressed. The safety feature switches off the electricity entirely if the gun is not used for around 20 minutes. But don't worry, all you need to do is press the master switch. When you've finished work, pull the plug out of the socket. Turn off the water tap. Press the trigger of the gun until the pressure is released. Apply the safety catch and detach the water hose.
Activate the brakes. Connect water supply. There is a viewing window for oil level control next to the hand wheel. Now you can start to work as usual. Turn on the therm and clean. Connect the burner and select the temperature. If you want to work in the steam level, you must set the thermostat to over 100 degrees Celsius and reduce the pressure to below 30 bars. We will now show you how the Therm C is designed. Here is the black pressure switch for the burner start and stop, the safety valve for the heating coil, and the red pressure switch for motor start-stop. The screws for the water tank fixation are also under the lower casing. The drain screw for the water tank is located here. When the burner is switched on and the gun is closed, the oil pressure manometer shows full pressure. This is the so-called SP fuel pump. In the case of machines with Santec pump, the manometer shows full pressure when the solenoid valve is open. The control panel is new on the Therm C. You must loosen these screws to get the complete electric systems. Remember the screw under the thermostat. The arrangement of the components under the control panel is also new. Main switch, ignition on-off, excess temperature release, motor protection switch, motor contactor, thermostat, board on which these are found, fuse for ignition transformer left, on the right hand fuse for burner motor. And connections for photocell, float switch, flow monitor, red pressure switch for motor start-stop, black pressure switch for burner start-stop, and rotation thermostat. Here you will find the flow monitor, photocell and waste gas excess temperature release. First, dismount the safety valve for the heating coil. You have to loosen this screw on the red pressure switch and push from the rear to the front. Now you can remove it. Also remove the black pressure switch. Pull the detergent hose upward. Four screws hold the pump head. Now you can easily remove it. The pump seals can stay on the plungers. The motor is fixed to the lower side of the appliance by 4 screws. To remove the motor, loosen these screws. Remove this panel from the terminal box. Loosen all cables from the terminals. Now you can remove the motor. Here you see an optimally equipped workshop. Clear arrangement of the different tools, special tools, diagnostic equipment and measuring instruments. To make work easier, put the pump into a vise. We first remove the hand wheel with the regulation piston. Then the safety valve for the heating coil. Bypass valve with spring. O-ring and ball are located on the opposite side of the hand wheel. You must use a screwdriver to squeeze out the safety ring, and then a bent pointed plier is useful. Use a hammer and screwdriver to lift out the stainless steel seat, and then the O-ring. When you put the unit back together, make sure that the order is correct. O-ring and seat. Safety ring with the opening upward until it is in the stipulated position. Now ball and spring and locking screw. The spring is conically shaped. The side with the smaller diameter belongs onto the ball, and then the locking screw. For repairing the regulation piston, you must first screw off the hand wheel. Remove the closure cap. This is the only way you can get to the nut. Unscrew the hand wheel. Put needle bearing, washers and spring on one side. Now measure the set distance so as to be able to reach the maximum pressure set at the factory after putting the unit back together again. Now you can remove the counter nuts. Remove this dowel pin and pull out the regulation piston. Now you can replace worn seals. When putting together the pressure regulation, pay attention to how the parts belong together. Insert the dowel pin. Remember, you measured the distances between counter nuts before. Still, after installing, check the operating pressure and maximum pressure. Wear on the peak of the regulation piston indicates that the appliance was continuously in bypass mode due to a small nozzle or contamination to the seat and the ball. When putting the parts back together, make sure that the order of the pressure regulation is correct. Now, we remove the pressure switch for motor, start and stop. If seals wear in a very short period, this probably means that the pump sucks in air via the detergent valve, water supply or via worn high pressure sleeves or leaks to the hose, leading to regular switching on and off. Here you see the individual parts of this pressure switch in the right order. The high pressure nozzle at the top of the lance may be dirty. This leads to bypass operation. You can use a paper clip, for example, to easily clean the high pressure nozzle. All Kranzle high pressure cleaners operate with 6 valves. Thus, you must check all 6 valves. They may be clogged or dirty. Loosen valve screw. Check green valve. We also use red ones and clean it if necessary. Compressed air is also suitable for cleaning valves and O-rings. You may have to repeat this procedure with all 6 valves. Remember to check O-rings for dirt or damages. Quick wear to O-rings can be attributed to cavitation. You can rinse the valve openings with water, like this. Put all valves back on and tightly screw them. If this does not help, you have to check the suction system for tightness. For this purpose, connect water supply directly to the pump. First, remove the suction filter. Check seals, hose bendings and clamps. In the case of O and 5 series high pressure cleaners, you can connect the water supply directly to the pump. There are different connecting variations for various machine types. This is a possibility. This is the solution for Therm 870 and C series. Now, for Therm 870 and C series, clamp the 2 suction hoses so that suction is tight. If the detergent valve is closed and the detergent hose leaks, the detergent valve is not tight enough. Pull off the check valve first. To control or replace the detergent valve, you must remove this cap. Remove the knob. Now you can loosen the screws and pull up lining and turn it. You must now replace this O-ring or this one. When reassembling, make sure that the suction hose leading to the high pressure pump is connected to the side where the small O-ring sits. Now your high pressure cleaner should suck perfectly again. Floater may be dirty or defective. It is in the water box. There are 2 floater versions. This is the new version. Basically, both versions are interchangeable with some minor adaptations. You can take the floater apart for cleaning. Check for permeability of holes in the membrane. Here you will find the water filter. You may have to clean it or replace it. Check the water pressure. In some models, there is some filter in the water inlet. First, check the return body of the unloader for dirt or defective sites, here with the O and C series. If the sealing area is already damaged, you can carefully rework it with a counterbore on a drilling machine. Now rescrew everything. The return body is behind the connection of the manometer hose in the 5 series. Then check to see whether the red pressure switch is working. The regulation piston must move. Check micro switch, terminal and cable connectors. The problem may be related to the control circuit board. Check the cable connections and, if necessary, put a bridge between terminals 5 and 6 in the case of the O series. In the case of the S series, do this for terminals STS1 and STS2 and terminals 4 and 6 for the 5 series. If start-stop still does not work, the circuit board is defective and must be replaced. Open the control panel. Most likely question, is the machine connected and live? Check the voltage and electronics of the machine accordingly. If there is no current flow in the switch, it must be replaced. If there is voltage on the protective coil, but the machine does not start, you can use a screwdriver to mechanically move the contactor and to start the machine for test purposes. If the machine now starts, there are 2 possibilities. Check the cable connections and contacts. If the contactor is defective, replace it. The next possibility. The voltage is too low, triggering the motor protection switch. It is placed in the initial position. Determine whether the ampere number has been correctly set for the machine and whether the voltage is correct. The correct position of motor protection switch is automatic. The motor protection switch can be defect. In this case, it must be replaced. At first, loosen the 4 screws to remove the pump head. Now it can be easily removed. Sleeves can stick to the drive. Now remove seals and O-rings. Match a repair set consisting of seals, sleeves and O-rings in the right order to each plunger. To facilitate assembling of spare parts, we offer special tools. You can obtain these from us. When replacing sealing sets, you must respect the order and the installation direction. First, the hard ones without pressure ring. Then the leakage ring, and the soft seals with pressure ring. take a look in your operating instructions to determine whether you must use a brass intermediate ring for this type of pump. It is often not easy to remove the spacers on the plungers. Turn the motor on briefly. The spacers are loosened by the vibrations. Now you can see whether one of the 3 oil seals leaks or not. Of course, you must remove the oil before disassembling the housing. There is a screw M8 by 55 on each side for removing the oil housing, to be used in the place of serial screws. As a result, there is even pressure relief when the oil housing is removed. Now, take plunger and springs from housing. Here you will find the DU bushings that can be replaced after wear. A special tool is helpful for replacing the DU bushings. Put the new DU bushing on the tool. The old bushing is replaced by the new bushing due to the pressure from the vise, or it is pressed out by a press. The same task in the case of smaller models. If the guide of a DU bushing is damaged, housing plate or housing must be renewed. Now, shaft disc, roll cage, AS disc, and finally the swash plate must be removed. If it sticks, you must use a special drawing device. Screw and the swash plate can be removed. Four hexagon socket screws secure the bearing flange A side. Remove the feather key and withdraw the flange with this special tool. Did you remove lock ring and fan wheel behind the motor? Now you can use a plastic hammer to pull the rotor to the front and remove it. The ball bearing is located here, with tolerance ring in the bearing seat from the end of 2002. If necessary, replace shaft seal or bearing of A flange. Here, in the case of motor, size 112. In the case of motor sizes 80, 90 and 100, you must use a hot air blower to heat the bearing seat. Bearing loosens at a temperature of approximately 500 to 600 degrees Celsius. Then you can knock it out, as shown in the picture. Here, the same procedure for motor housing sizes 80 and 90. To reinstall bearing and shaft seal into motor size 112, here in the picture, simply place parts on this special tool and install. The bearing ring is inserted and pressed in by careful, evenly beating with a hammer. The same procedure for motor housing sizes 80 and 90. Now you can put back everything in the opposite order. Tighten screws of motor flange evenly. The torque is 3.5 kilograms. Carefully place the bearing on the rotor with the help of the special sleeve and bring into position. Do not forget the feather key. Using a plastic hammer, hammer on the swash plate. The AS disc, the roll cage and the shaft disc. Now change the oil seals. This is how the old oil seals are removed. Here, the oil seals in smaller models as a comparison. The disassembling tool fits all sizes. The new seals are fitted with a special tool. In the case of motor sizes 80 and 90, they are installed in the same way. As comparison, here the removal of the drive in motor housings of series 80 and 90 is shown. After the screws have been loosened, take out head with plungers, springs and bearings. If the swash blade sticks, it is removed with a special extractor. You can also check the surface of the plungers with your hands for damages. After inserting the plungers for assembling the drive housing, you must use the two screws M8 by 55 again. Now the pump head can be mounted. Wait, have you installed the spacers? After installing the motor pump unit, check the individual functions. After resetting the maximum pressure as set at the factory, the safety valve for the heating coil can be set. You must first reduce pressure on the safety valve until water comes out. Clamp spring until no water pours out any longer. Then turn approximately 1.5 revolutions further to be 10% above the respective cutout pressure of the pump. The safety valve for the heating coil is here for the 5 series, and it is also set this way. In the case of the 5 series, the most important regulating and safety elements are placed in a block. It consists of 1. The unloader for pressure adjustment, which is in the pump head in the O and C series. 2. The safety valve for the heating coil, separate in case of O and C series. 3. The red pressure switch, which is on the pump head in the O and C series. 4. The black pressure switch, also on the pump head of the O and C series. 5. The flow monitor. For maintenance, first remove the pressure switches and all connections. The flow monitor starts or stops the burner when the gun is closed, that is, no water flows. This is the read contact of the flow monitor. The floater body contains a magnet that triggers the read contact of the pressure switch. With a measuring instrument, for example, an ohmmeter, you can check function of magnet and read contact. The safety valve for the heating coil is located here. Seals must be cleaned or replaced if necessary. After removing the inlet piece, we tilt the safety block for better demonstration. The ball of the bypass for the heating coil safety valve is removed. As shown, seat and stainless steel ring can be replaced, then reassemble everything in the right order. The hand wheel and regulating piston of the unloader are removed. If necessary, seals can be cleaned and replaced. The pressure adjustment of the bypass unloader can be removed with seat, spring and ball. There is an O-ring behind it. The closure screw for the return body of the unloader and the connection for the manometer are removed now. Leaks result in the return body being switched on all the time and quick wear. Pay attention to the installation direction of the spring. The side with the smaller diameter belongs on the ball. Note the installation order. The stainless steel seat is held by the connecting part in the safety block. Do not open these 4 auxiliary bores for processing. They have no function at all. If the burner is turned on but the waste gas is still cold, it can be attributed to the following causes. Check to see whether there is enough fuel in the tank. The fuel filter may be dirty. If it is, clean it. Remember to clean the fuel tank as well. For this purpose, you must open the drain screw on the bottom to empty the tank. You may have to set or renew the ignition electrode, or the fuel nozzle may have to be replaced if it is dirty. For this purpose, you must remove the entire nozzle stick. Loosen all connections and pull the complete nozzle stick upward. There are 2 different variants with 4 or 6 air inlet openings. To change the fuel nozzle, loosen these hexagon cap screws. After the replacement, reinsert the new nozzle with sealant. The optimum distance between the electrodes is 3 mm. The distance to the nozzle's peak is 5 mm. On the oil supply line, you can set the air volume by sliding. This ensures optimum combustion. Pushing downward results in less air supply. Pushing upward results in more air supply. This depends on the fuel quality and the atmospheric pressure. Now, check the function of the black pressure switch, which starts the burner. For this purpose, bridge contacts 3 and 4 for the O series. There is a switching plan in the terminal box. Contacts 11 and 9 for the 5 series. Check the fuse. There are spare fuses in the terminal box. Terminal 1 and 10 in the O series and terminals 16 and 19 for the 5 series are for the voltage of the ventilator motor. For the O series, you can check the voltage of the solenoid valve on terminals 8 and 12 and on terminals 17 and 20 for the 5 series. All of these functional tests apply for the 5 and O series. Contacts are on the circuit board for the C series. 2 different oil pumps are used. To the right, the old model, Santec. As replacement, you can obtain this SP oil pump with pre-finished connections from us. The order number is 44073. The float switch in the oil tank prevents the oil pump from running dry and the oil tank from draining completely. This is how the floater switch, located below on the fuel line, is removed. You can easily determine whether it is defective with an ohmmeter. Test the circuit board by pulling the 2 plugs for the floater switch. Then place a bridge over the 2 bars by 5 and by 6. By withdrawing and plugging a contact, you can check the function of the float switch. If the machine operates now, the circuit board is defective. To check the magnetic valve, pull the plug and bridge the 2 cables of the magnetic valve. You must have first checked to see whether there is 230 volts. Determine the voltage on ignition transformer for the O series via terminals 2 and 11, via terminals 15 and 18 for the 5 series. If there is a voltage, switch the machine off prior to the next step. Remove the plug from the electrode and connect it directly to an external ignition electrode. You must place it on a safe isolation. Now you can briefly switch on the machine, but pay attention, do not touch the ignition electrode. If the electrode functions, the ignition transformer and ignition are okay. Now we will show you how to remove the oil pump. Loosen the hexagon cap screws on the pump shaft and all connections. Now pull the entire pump upward. The coupling is here below, or you can use a bent-pointed plier to pull it from the plug-in connection. The fan motor with fan wheel is fixed to the fan casing with 11 screws. This waste gas excess temperature release is activated at 240 degrees Celsius, among others when the heating coil is calcified or full of soot. Normally, the waste gas temperature is 190 to 200 degrees. To start again, please press in again after approximately 10 minutes of cooling time. This probe measures the temperature. If you still cannot switch on the burner, the rotational thermostat is defective. Make sure that these 2 terminals are sufficiently tight. Or check the temperature probe by supplying external heat. You may have to replace it. Heavy smoke development indicates that the heating coil is full of soot, poor fuel is used, or the insulating plate is full of fuel. As preparation, you must do the following. After you have removed the nozzle stick, loosen the connectors for the heating coil and for the fuel pump, the fixation screws for the outer cap of the heating coil, as well as the probe for the waste gas thermostat. Now you can lift the outer cap. Watch out for the centering edge when installing. This is a special feature with Kranzle high pressure cleaners. It makes sure that the flame is in the middle of the combustion chamber and thus in the optimum position when installing and even later. The inlay of the heating coil can also be easily removed after the screws have been loosened. By the way, the wound heating coil is 34 meters long and can hold 5 liters of water. With a 25 centimeter long flat iron that you clamp between the coils, you can easily pull the heating coil upward. The flame deflector the insulation plate can now be removed. Clean the burning chamber, replace defective parts if necessary, and reassemble the unit. When you turn on the thermostat, 888 light up briefly on the display. This indicates that everything is working fine. If error is displayed, check cable and cable terminal of temperature probe line and replace the special cable if necessary. The plug may have become loose from the control panel. Make sure that it is plugged in tightly. You may also have to replace the thermostat. It may also be wet. In this case, allow it to dry. The error message, FLA, lights up. This means that the burner cannot start. Check the fuel filter. Ignition electrode. Fuel pump and solenoid valve. Ignition transformer and this temperature probe for the flame monitoring. Once you have replaced the probe for flame monitoring, watch out how you insert the contacts. White on the outside, green on the inside. Starting autumn 2003, the machines have been equipped with an optical flame monitoring. You can find information about it in the chapter The New Digital Display. If there is enough fuel in the tank and the error message oil still lights up, the floater may be sticking, a cable is defective, or the supply tubes are clogged. Up to now, the thermostat has only indicated target and actual temperature. During some operations, it takes too long after cooling for the desired temperature to be reached again. The new percentage mode elegantly solves this problem. The operator no longer only inputs the desired temperature, but can only input the heating time in percent. Thus, the temperature can be kept constant in a very narrow range. There is more detailed information in your operating instructions. You can also read operating hours of the pump with P. And of the burner with F, both new features. On request, you can deactivate the 20-minute safety switch off. Here you can find the circuit board of the new thermostat settings. And there is the display. Up to autumn 2003, the Therm was equipped with 2 probes in the chimney. The upper probe measured the waste gas excess temperature, and the lower the probe flame monitoring. If the temperature did not climb above 100 degrees Celsius in 14 seconds, oil supply was stopped. New models monitor the flame with a photocell. Thus, no longer a second probe in the chimney is necessary. Oil supply will stop immediately if no combustion takes place after 4 seconds. These 2 circuit boards are possible in the Therm O series. The old version is on the left, and the new version is on the right. Of course, both versions are interchangeable. Here are the contacts for current supply. Connectors for the red pressure switch by 5 and by 6, and the connection for the safety coil control. To turn off the 20-minute safety cutout, you must separate the third bridge of the IC in this version. The article number for this version is 42503 for 400 volts and 42504 for 230 volts. In the new version, you will find here are the contacts for current supply. The connectors for the red pressure switch by 5 and by 6. And the connection for the safety coil control. You can turn off the 20-minute safety cutout by removing this resistance. The article numbers for these circuit boards are 42563 for 400 volts and 42564 for 230 volts. This is a set for making an electronic bridge consisting of 2 plugs and a 100 ohm resistance. Here in this picture are 2 possible circuit boards in the 5 series with flame monitoring. The old version is on the left with article number 440501 for 230 volts and 44050 for machines with 400 volts. The article number for the new version is 44196 for 400 volts and 44196.1 for machines with 230 volts. When you replace the old version with a new version, you must pay attention to 2 important things. You must remove the bridge on the plug of the machine. If you are using an older 5 series machine without flame monitoring, you must insert a bridge with 100 ohms resistance over the contact for the flame monitoring. This thermostat has not been available since July 2004. You can get this transformation set from us at a special price. Article number 441013 for 400 volts and 441014 for 230 volts. It consists of 4 components. 1. Thermostat display. 2. Photocell. 3. Cover plate of nozzle stick and 4. Circuit board for machines equipped with optical flame monitoring. When you transform a machine, you must make sure that the contacts for the temperature probe must be connected here. White cable to terminal 1, black cable to terminal 2. The photocell must be connected here. These terminals are not occupied because they are foreseen for special functions.
This is to illustrate that the high-pressure pump receives enough water, that the chamber in front of the plunger is filled with water, and that the high-pressure cleaner functions properly. And here, another more simplified view. In the event of insufficient water, a vacuum or negative pressure is produced. This causes the release of air and gases which are normally bound in the water, as well as cavitation. And by the way, the higher the temperature, the faster this process takes place. This mixture of air and gas is compressed, causing the high-pressure cleaner to function improperly. Seals and gaskets are destroyed. Therefore, make sure to use water with temperatures not exceeding 60 or 70 degrees Celsius, according to equipment, and an admission pressure of approximately 2 bar. Insufficient water may also cause control piston and check valve body seals to be damaged. The pump does not switch back to the pressureless circuit, the hand wheel can be moved backward and forward, and the pressure gauge shows full pressure.
Damages caused by cavitation appear first to the O-rings, so that you can compare. To the left are new O-rings. The other O-rings have been damaged. If you do not change the oil seals in good time, transmission damages can also occur. Plunger guides can be destroyed, and plungers can be damaged. And as a result, the running area of the plungers can also be damaged. Condition of damages provides information about the causes. Cavitation can also lead to damages to bearing. You can download all operating instructions and manuals from the internet at www.kranzle.com.